So before people start coming in, for when I post this on my YouTube channel, we're going to be continuing reading A Wind in the Door from the trilogy A Wrinkle in Time. And we're in chapter 2 of this. So we're in chapter 2 of A Wind in the Door. It's the second book of the A Wrinkle in Time trilogy. So that's where we're at. So, oh, and let me make sure I add everybody or invite everybody that I know usually likes to be in here. Assuming they're already probably sleeping. Let me just get everybody. Yeah, hello. How are you guys? So I'm doing a bedtime story. I haven't done it in a while. Just been busy with everything else. So picking back up, I have all of the previous chapters uploaded to my YouTube channel. So if you are not caught up with where we're at, head over to my YouTube channel. I keep the same name across all my platforms, so you can find me easily that way. And I also have links in my link in bio. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that you find it soothing. And there's Keto. So we are, again, for everybody who's here, A Wind in the Door. That's the book we're in, and it's a trilogy. So the first book is A Wrinkle in Time, and then the second book is what we're in, is A Wind in the Door, and the last book is A Swiftly Tilting Planet. So I have all of the previous chapters, including from the first book, uploaded on my YouTube channel. So make sure you go over there, subscribe to my channel, and read it. Good morning, Michigan, good morning. All I can ask for is everybody stays happy and healthy, and that's honestly all I ask for anybody. Good morning. Stop. Hello, morning. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the chapter 2. I always read like the previous chapter's last paragraph, just to kind of give us a grounding for the current chapter we're in. So once again, this is the second book of the trilogy. Kito's gonna join us. Hola. We're reading A Wind in the Door. Let him get situated. You comfy? He heard me talking. He wanted to come see what was going on. So I'm just going to read the previous chapter's last paragraph of, the first chapter I read already, and that is also uploaded on my YouTube channel to catch up on. Yes, he is my favorite. He is just the most wonderful cat. I've had a lot of animals in my life. Thank you. Okay, so this is the last paragraph of chapter 1 of A Wind in the Door of the trilogy. Are you comfy? Alright. Charles Wallace was down on his hands and knees. Look, on the moss around the rock was a small drift of feathers. They did not look like bird feathers. They were extraordinarily soft and sparkling at the same time, and between the feathers were bits of glinting silver gold, leaf-shaped scales which, Meg thought, might well belong to dragons. You see, Meg, they were here. My dragons were here. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Boots, so much. I appreciate that. Yes. Oh, thank you, user. Lyndon, hello. How are you? I'm glad you made it. With that voice, who are you? Hi, Pika. How are you, Boots? Welcome. Thanks for being here. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Calvin. Baddie alert. Oh my gosh, you guys are so sweet. Hello, little me. Well, I can't hold you or anybody else except for Keto right now, but I will read to all of you. Alright, so now we're in chapter 2. Aw, thank you, guys. Thank you. I'm gonna pick you up. If you're picking me up, then why do I need shoes on? I'm not gonna be walking, right? Sorry, I had to. That was funny. Alright. Chapter 2. A Rip in the Galaxy. Mike. Yes, Keto does have a very soothing purr. Alright. Trying to find a way to get Keto. There we go. Now we got it. It's like a soothing sound machine. I love it. Oh my goodness. You guys are amazing. Alright, chapter 2. A Rip in the Galaxy. When Meg and Charles Wallace returned to the house, silently, each holding strange and new thoughts, evening was moving in with the wind. The twins were waiting for them and wanted Charles Wallace to go out in the last of the light to play catch. "It's too dark already," Charles Wallace said. "We've got a few minutes. Come on, Charles. You may be bright, but you're slow at playing ball. I could pitch when I was 6, and you can't even catch without fumbling." Dennis patted Charles, a pat more like a whack. "He's improving. Come on, we've only got a few minutes." Charles Wallace shook his head. He did not mention that he did not feel well. He just said firmly, "Not tonight." Meg left the twins still arguing with him and went into the kitchen. Mrs. Murry was just coming in from the laboratory, and her mind was still on her work. She peered vaguely into the refrigerator. Meg confronted her. "Mother, Charles Wallace thinks something is wrong with his mitochondria or farandole or something." Mrs. Murry shut the refrigerator door. "Sometimes Charles Wallace thinks too much." "What does Dr. Kalubra think about this mitochondria bit?" "That it's a possibility. Louise thinks the bad flu strain this autumn, which has caused a lot of deaths, may not be the flu at all, but mitochondritis." "And that's what Charles maybe has?" "I do not know, Meg. I'm trying to find out. When I know something, I will tell you. I've already said that. Meanwhile, let me alone." Meg took a step backward, sat down on the dining chairs. Her mother never talked to her in that cold, shutting-out way to her children. It must mean that she was very worried indeed. Mrs. Murry turned toward Meg with an apologetic smile. "Sorry, Megatron. I didn't mean to be sharp. I'm in the difficult position of knowing more about the possible ailments of mitochondria than almost anybody else today. I didn't expect it to be confronted with the results of my work quite so soon, and I still don't know enough to tell you, or Louise, anything definite. Meanwhile, there's no point in our getting all worried unless we know there's a real reason. Right now, we'd better concentrate on Charles Wallace's problems at school." "Is he well enough to go to school?" Uh-oh. So real quick, we are reading the second book of the trilogy, A Wrinkle in Time trilogy. This is A Wind in the Door, and we're in chapter 2. And again, if you are not caught up, I have every single previous chapter that I've read from my TikTok lives here on my YouTube channel, which my YouTube channel is the same name as my name here. Hi. It's making you tired. Well, good. We're getting late. Oh, soothing machine. I love it. Okay. Alright. I think so. For now. I don't want to take him out until I have to. Why not? He'd just have to go back eventually, Meg, and then things would be harder than ever. If he can just get through these first weeks. Mother, nobody around here has ever known a 6-year-old boy like Charles. He's extremely intelligent, but there was a day when it wasn't unusual for a 12 or 13-year-old to graduate from Harvard or Oxford or Cambridge. It's unusual today, and you and Father can hardly send him to Harvard at 6. Anyhow, it isn't just that he's intelligent. How does he know what we're thinking and feeling? I don't know how much you've told him, but he knows an awful lot about mitochondria and farandole. I've told him a reasonable amount. He knows more than a reasonable amount, and he knows you're worried about him. Mrs. Murry perched on one of the high stools by the kitchen counter, which divided the work area from the rest of the bright, rambly dining and studying room. She sighed. You're right, Meg. Charles Wallace not only has a good mind, he has an extraordinary powers of intuition. If he can learn to discipline and channel them when he grows up, She broke off. I have to think about getting dinner. Meg knew when to stop pushing her mother. I'll help. What are we having? She did not mention Charles Wallace's dragons. She did not mention Louise Larger's strange behavior, nor the shadow of whatever it was they had not quite seen. Oh, spaghetti's easy. Mrs. Murry pushed a curl of dark red hair back from her forehead. And good on an autumn night. And we've got all the tomatoes and peppers and stuff from the twins' garden. Mother, I love the twins even when they get in my hair, but Charles... I know, Meg. You and Charles have always had a very special relationship. Mother, I can't stand what's happening to him at school. Neither can I, Meg. Then, what are you doing about it? We're trying to do nothing. It would be easy, for now, to take Charles out of school. We thought about that immediately, even before But Charles Wallace is going to live in a world made up of people who don't think at all in any of the ways that he does. And the sooner he starts learning to get along with them, the better. Neither you nor Charles has the ability to adapt that the twins do. Charles is a lot brighter than the twins. A life form which can't adapt doesn't last very long. I still don't like it. Neither do your father and I, Meg. Bear with us. Remember, you do have a tendency to rush in when the best thing to do is wait and be patient for a while. I'm not in the least patient. Is that for my information? Mrs. Murry took tomatoes, onions, green and red peppers, garlic, and leeks out of the vegetable. Then, starting to slice onions into a large black iron pot, she said thoughtfully, You know, Meg, you went through a pretty rough time at school yourself. Not as bad as Charles. And I'm not as bright as Charles, except maybe in math. Possibly you're not, though you do tend to underestimate your own particular capacities. What I'm getting at is that you do seem, this year, to be finding school moderately bearable. Mr. Jenkins isn't there anymore, and Calvin O'Keefe is. Calvin's important. He's the basketball star and president of the senior class and everything. Anybody Calvin likes is sort of protected by his aura. And why do you suppose Calvin likes you? Not because of my beauty, that's for sure. But he does like you, doesn't he, Meg? Well, yes, I guess so, but Calvin likes lots of people, and he could have any girl in school if he wanted to. But he chose you, didn't he? Meg could feel herself flushing. She put her hands up to her cheeks. Well, yes, but it's different. It's because of some of the things we've been through together. And we're friends. I mean, we're not like most of the other kids. I'm glad you're friends. I've become very fond of that skinny, carrot-headed young man. Meg laughed. I think Calvin confuses you with Pallas Athene. You're his absolute ideal. And he likes all of us. His own family's certainly a mess. I really think he likes me only because of our family. Mrs. Murry sighed. Stop being self-deprecating, Meg. Maybe at least I can learn to cook as well as you do. Did you know it was one of Calvin's brothers who beat Charles Wallace up today? I bet he's upset. I don't mean Whippy. He couldn't care less. Calvin. Somebody's bound to have told him. Do you want to call him? Not me, not Calvin. I just have to wait. Maybe he'll come over or something. She sighed. I wish life didn't have to be so complicated. Do you suppose I'll ever be a double PhD like you, Mother? Mrs. Murry looked up from slicing peppers and laughed. It's really not the answer to all problems. There are other solutions. At this point, I'm more interested in knowing whether or not I've put too many red peppers in the spaghetti sauce. I've lost count. They had just sat down to dinner when Mr. Murry phoned to tell them that he was going directly from Washington to Brookhaven for a week. Such trips were not unusual for either of their parents, but right now, anything that took either of her father or mother away struck Meg as sinister. Without much conviction, she said, I hope he has fun. He likes lots of the people there. But she felt a panicky dependence on having both her parents home at night. It wasn't only because of her fears for Charles Wallace. It was that suddenly the whole world was unsafe and uncertain. Several houses nearby had been broken into that autumn, and while nothing of great value had been taken, drawers had been emptied with casual maliciousness, food dumped on the living room floors, upholstery slashed. Even their safe little village was revealing itself to be unpredictable and irrational and precarious. And while Meg had already begun to understand this with her mind, she had never before felt it with the whole of herself. Now a cold awareness of the uncertainty of all life, no matter how careful the planning, hollowed emptily in the pit of her stomach. Charles Wallace looked at her and said, unsmilingly, The best laid plans of mice and men. Gang oft agely, Sandy finished. Man proposes, God disposes, Dennis added, not to be outdone. The twins held out their plates for more spaghetti, neither one ever having been known to lose his appetite. Why does Father have to stay a whole week? Sandy asked. It's his work, after all, Dennis said. Mother, I think you could have put more hot peppers in the sauce. He's been away a lot this autumn. He ought to stay home with his family at least some of the time. I think the sauce is okay. Of course it's okay. I just like it a little hotter. Meg was not thinking about spaghetti, although she was sprinkling Parmesan over hers. She wondered what their mother would say if Charles Wallace told her about their dragons. If there really were dragons, or a reasonable facsimile thereof, in the north pasture, oughtn't their parents to know? Sandy said, When I grow up, I'm going to be a banker and make money. Someone in this family has to stay in the real world. Now that we don't think science in the real world, Mother, Dennis said, but you and Father aren't practical scientists, you're theoretical scientists. Mrs. Murry demurred. I'm not wholly impractical, you know, Sandy, and neither is your father. Spending hours and hours peering into your microelectron microscope and listening to that microsonar, isn't practical, Sandy announced. You just look at things nobody else can see, Dennis added, and listens to things nobody else can hear, and think about them. Meg defended her mother. It would be a good idea if more people knew how to think. After Mother thinks about something long enough, then she puts it into practice. Or someone else does. Charles Wallace cocked his head with a pleased look. Does practical mean that something works out in practice? His mother nodded. So it doesn't matter if Mother sits and thinks, or if Father spends weeks over one equation. Even if he writes it on the tablecloth, his equations are practical if someone else makes them work out in practice. He reached in his pockets as though in answer to Meg's thoughts about the dragons, and drew out a feather. Not a bird feather, but a strange glitter catching the light. All right, my practical brothers, what is this? Sandy, sitting next to Charles Wallace, bent over the dragon's feather. A feather. Dennis got up and went around the table so that he could see. Let me... Charles Wallace held the feather between them. What kind is it? Hey, this is most peculiar. Sandy touched the base of the feather. I don't think it's from a bird. And why not? Charles Wallace asked. The ratchis isn't right. The what? Meg asked. The ratchis. Sort of part of the quill. The ratchis should be hollow, and this is solid, and seems to be metallic. Hey, Charles, where'd you get this thing? Charles Wallace handed the feather to his mother. She looked at it carefully. Sandy is right. It isn't like a bird's, Dennis said. That's what... Charles Wallace retrieved the feather and put it back in his pocket. It was on the ground by the big rocks in the north pasture. Not just this one feather, quite a few others. Hello! Welcome, welcome. This is the second book. So A Wrinkle in Time is actually a trilogy, and this is A Wind in the Door, which is the second book of the trilogy, A Wrinkle in Time. And we're in the second chapter. No Man's Planet, hello! And Time book. There was a Mice and Men quote in this book, that is true. How are you? Howdy, mate, hello. No Man's is kind of here. Oh, thank you for the roses. Thank you, guys. Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for the gifts and the likes and the follows. Alright, let's continue. We are reading the second book in the Wrinkle in Time trilogy, A Wind in the Door. We're in the second chapter. Random guy. Ah, thank you, random guy. Oh, I did see that. Thank you so much. Glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Welcome. Alright. Meg suppressed a slightly hysterical giggle. Charles and I think it may be a few minutes. Sandy returned to her with injured dignity. Fumets are dragon droppings, Dennis said. Don't be silly, then. Do you know what it is, Mother? She shook her head. What do you think it is, Charles? Charles Wallace, as he occasionally did, retreated into himself. When Meg had decided he wasn't going to answer at all, he said, It's something that's not in Sandy and Dennis's practical world. When I find out more, I'll tell you. He sounded very like their mother. She's everywhere. Thank you for the roses. Thank you. She shook her head. Okay then. Dennis had lost interest. He returned to his chair. Did Father tell you why he has to go rushing off to Brookhaven? Or is it another of those top-secret classified things? Mrs. Murry looked down at the checked tablecloth and at the remains of an equation which had not come out in the wash. Doodling equations on anything available was a habit of which she could not break her husband. It's not really secret. There have been several bits about it in the papers recently. About what? Sandy asked. There's been an unexplainable phenomenon, not in our part of the galaxy, but far across it, and in several other galaxies. Well, the easiest way to explain it is that our new super-sensitive sonic instruments have been picking up strange sounds. Sounds which aren't on any normal register, but much higher. After such a sound, a cosmic scream. The Times rather sensationally called it, there appears to be a small rip in the galaxy. What does that mean? Dennis asked. It seems to mean, Anytime. Oh, thank you for the share, Lyndon. Thank you. Oh, I'm so glad. Okay. Thank you guys so much for the follows. let's continue. It seems to mean that several stars have vanished. Vanished where? That's the odd part. Vanished. Completely. Where the stars were, there is, as far as our instruments can detect, nothing. Your father was out in California several weeks ago. You remember, at Mount Palomar, or Pilomar. But things can't just vanish, Sandy said. We had it in school, the balance of matter. Their mother added, very quietly, it seems to be getting unbalanced. You mean like the ecology? No, I mean that matter actually seems to be being annihilated. I try to do this often, yes. Thank you so much for the gifts. Thank you guys. Keto says thank you as well. And if you want to catch up with the chapters, I have all the previous chapters, including the previous first book, uploaded onto my YouTube channel. No, I mean, okay, sorry. You mean like the ecology? No, I mean that matter actually seems to be being annihilated, Dennis said flatly, but that's impossible. E equals mc squared, Sandy said. Matter can be converted into energy, and energy into matter. You have to have one or the other, Mrs. Murry said. Thus far, Einstein's law has never been disproved, but it's coming into question. Nothingness, Dennis said. That's impossible. One would hope so. And that's what Father's going off about? Yes, to consult with several other scientists. Shasti from India, Shen Shu from China. You've heard of them? Outside the dining room, windows came a sudden, brilliant flash of light, followed by a loud clap of thunder. Give me a second. Making sure I had you on the mod. Okay, cool. Kiki. Yeah. That made me laugh. That's good. That's funny. That was funny. Okay. Yes, to consult with several other scientists. Shasti from India, Shen Shu from China. You've heard of them. Outside the dining room windows came a sudden, brilliant flash of light. Gotta compose myself. Followed by a loud clap of thunder. The windows rattled. The kitchen door burst open. Everybody jumped. Meg sprang up, crying nervously. Oh, Mother. Sit down, Meg. You've heard thunder before. You're sure it's not one of those cosmic things? Sandy shut the door. Mrs. Murry was calmly reassuring. Positive. They're completely inaudible to human ears. Lightning flashed again. Thunder boomed. As a matter of fact, there are only 2 instruments in the world delicate enough to pick up the sound, which is incredibly high-pitched. It's perfectly possible that it's been going on for millennia, and only now are our instruments capable of recording it. Birds can hear sounds way above our normal pitch, Sandy said. I mean way up the scale, that we can't hear at all. Birds can't hear this. Dennis said, I wonder if snakes can hear as high a pitch as birds. Snakes don't have ears, Sandy contradicted. So, they feel vibrations and sound waves. I think Louise hears all kinds of things out of human range. What's for dessert? Meg's voice was still tense. We don't usually have thunderstorms in October. Please, calm down, Meg. Mrs. Murry started clearing the table. If you'll stop and think, you'll remember that we've had an unseasonable storm for every month in the year. Sandy said, Why does Meg always exaggerate everything? Why does she have to be so cosmic? What's for dessert? I don't. Meg started defensively, then jumped as the rain began to pelt against the windows. There's some ice cream in the freezer, Mrs. Murry said. Sorry, I haven't been thinking about desserts. Meg's supposed to make desserts, Dennis said. Not that we expect pie or anything, Meg, but even you can't go too wrong with Jell-O. Charles Wallace caught Meg's eye, and she closed her mouth. He put his hand in the pocket of his robe again, though this time he did not produce the feather, and gave her a small, private smile. He may have been thinking about his dragons, but he had also been listening carefully, both to the conversation and to the storm. His fair head tilted slightly to one side. This ripping in the galaxy, Mother, does it have any effect on our own solar system? That, Mrs. Murray replied, is what we would all like to know. Sandy brushed this aside impatiently. It's all much too complicated for me. I'm sure banking is a lot simpler. And more lucrative, Dennis added. The windows shook in the wind. The twins looked through the darkness at the slashing rain. It's a good thing we brought in so much stuff from the garden before dinner. This is almost hail. Meg asked nervously. Is it dangerous, this ripping in the sky or whatever it is? Meg, we really know nothing about it. It may have been going on all along, and we only now have the instruments to record it. Like Farandole, Charles Wallace said. We tend to think things are new because we've just discovered them. But is it dangerous? Meg repeated. Meg, we don't know enough about it yet. That's why it's important that your father and some of the other physicists get together at once. But it could be dangerous. Anything can be dangerous. Meg looked down at the remains of her dinner. Dragons and rips in the sky. Louise and Fortinbras greeting something large and strange. Charles Wallace pale and listless. She did not like any of it. I'll do the dishes, she told her mother. They cleaned up the kitchen in silence. Mrs. Murry had sent the reluctant twins to practice for school orchestra. Dennis on the flute, which he played well, accompanied by Sandy, less skillfully on the piano, but it was a pleasant, familiar noise, and Meg relaxed into it. When the dishwasher was humming, the pots and pans polished and hung on their hooks, she went up to her attic bedroom to do her homework. This room was supposed to be her own private place, and it would have been perfect except for the fact that it was seldom really private. The twins kept their electric trains in the big, open section of the attic. The ping-pong table was there, and anything anybody didn't want around downstairs, but didn't want to throw away. Although Meg's room was at the far end of the attic, it was easily available to the twins when they needed help with their math homework, and Charles Wallace always knew, without being told, when she was troubled, and would come up to the attic to sit on the floor of her bed, or the foot of the bed. The only time she didn't want Charles Wallace was when he himself was what was troubling her. She did not want him now. Rain was still spattering against her window, but with diminishing force. The wind was swinging around from the south to the west. The storm was passing and the temperature falling. Her room was cold, but she did not plug in the little electric heater her parents had given her to supplement the inadequate heat which came up the attic stairs. Instead, she shoved her books aside and tiptoed back downstairs, stepping carefully over the seventh stair, which not only creaked, but sometimes gave off a report like a shot. The twins were still practicing. Her mother was in the living room, in front of the fire, reading to Charles Wallace. Not from the books about trains or animals, which the twins had liked at their age, but from a scientific magazine, an article called The Polarized Abilities and Hyperpolarized Abilities of Small Molecules by the theoretical chemist Peter Liebman. Ouch, Meg thought ruefully. This kind of thing is Charles Wallace's bedtime reading, and our parents expect him to go to first grade and not get into trouble. Charles Wallace lay on the floor in front of the fire, staring into the flames, half listening, half brooding. His head, as usual, pillowed on Fortinbras's comfortable bulk. Meg would have liked to take Forts with her, but that would mean letting the family know she was going out. She hurried as quickly and silently as possible through the kitchen and out into the pantry. As she pulled the kitchen door closed behind her, slowly, carefully, so nobody would hear, the pantry door flew open with a bang, and the door to her mother's lab on the left slammed shut in a gust of wind. She stopped, listened, waited for one of the twins to open the kitchen door and see what was going on. But nothing happened, except that the wind blew wildly through the pantry. She shivered and grabbed the first rain clothes that came to hand, a big black rubber poncho that belonged to the twins and had done double duty as a ground cloth for the tent, and Charles Wallace's yellow sou'wester. Then she took the big flashlight from the hook, shut the pantry door firmly before her, and ran across the lawn, tripping over the croquet wicket. Limping, she crossed the patch of dandelion, burdock, and milkweed that was growing up in the opening the twins had cut in the Burberry fence. Once she was in the vegetable garden, she hoped that she would be invisible to anybody chancing to look out a window. She could imagine Sandy's or Dennis's reaction if they asked her where she was going and she told them she was looking for dragons. Why, in fact, had she come out? And what was she looking for? Was it dragons? Fortinbras and Louise both had seen, and not been afraid of, something which had left the feathers and scales, and that something, or somethings, was likely to be unforgettable in the wet pasture. Uncomfortable in the wet pasture. If it or they came to seek shelter in the house, she wanted to be prepared, not only for dragons in which she did not quite believe, despite her faith in Charles Wallace and the feather with the peculiar ratchkis, but also for Louise the larger. The twins insisted that Louise was an unusual snake, but this afternoon was the first time Meg had seen any signs that Louise was anything more than a contented common garden variety snake. Meg checked the shadows on the wall, but there were no signs of Louise, so she lingered, not at all anxious to cross the apple orchard and go into the north pasture to the 2 glacial rocks. For a few minutes she would stay in the homely garden and gather her courage, and be safe from discovery. The twins were hardly likely to come out after dark in the cold and wet, to admire the last few cabbages, or the vine which had borne their prize cucumber, the size of a vegetable marrow. The garden was bordered on the cast by 2 rows of sunflowers, which stood with their heavy fringed heads bowed over so that they looked like a huddle of witches. Meg glanced at them nervously. Raindrops dripped from their faces with melancholy unconcern, but no longer from the sky. There was a hint of light from the full moon behind the thinning clouds, turning all the vegetables into beings strange and unreal. The gaping rows where once beans had stood and lettuce and peas had a forlorn look. There was an air of sadness and confusion about the carefully planned pattern. Scared me. Streamers, if they have games on their phones. Random guy. Oh, good, I'm so glad, Dodge. Oh, thank you, Lyndon. Thanks, sir. I appreciate it. On the plant. Yes, we're in chapter 2. Right now, page, Yeah, okay, because it's the it's the trilogy version, so all 3 books of the Wrinkle in Time trilogy are in this book. But I believe this, so we're in chapter 2, and I just got to page 239, at the bottom of 239. Thank you, thank you. Like everything else, Meg spoke to the few remaining cauliflower heads. It's falling apart. It's not right in the United States of America that a little kid shouldn't feel safe in school. She moved slowly along the orchard wall. The cidery smell of fallen apples was cut by the wind, which had completely changed the course and was now streaming across the garden from the northwest, sharp and glittery with frost. She saw a shadow move on the wall and jumped back. Louise the larger. It must be Louise. Aw, thank you, Dodge. Thank you. That's so sweet. Meg could not climb that wall or cross the orchard to the north pasture until she was sure that neither Louise nor the not-quite-seen shape was lurking there waiting to pounce on her. Her legs felt watery, so she sat on a large, squat pumpkin to wait. The cold wind brushed her cheek. Corn tassels hissed like ocean waves. She looked warily about. She was seeing, she realized, through lenses streaked and spattered by raindrops, blowing from sunflowers and corn, so she took off her spectacles, felt under the poncho for her kilt, and wiped them. Better, though the world was still a little wavery, as though seen under water. She listened. In the orchard, she heard the soft plump of falling apples, wind shaking the trees, branches rustling. She peered through the darkness. Something was moving, coming closer. You're gonna make me laugh. I love it. Okay, I need to focus. Snakes never come out in the cold and dark, she knew that. Nevertheless, Louise. Yes, it was the big snake. She emerged from the rocks of the stone wall, slowly, warily, watchfully. Meg's heart was thumping. Although Louise was not threatening, at least Louise was not threatening her. But Louise was waiting, and this time there was no welcome in the waiting. Meg looked in fascination as the head of the snake slowly weaved back and forth, then quivered in recognition. Behind Meg a voice came. Margaret. She whirled around. It was Mr. Jenkins. She looked at him in complete bewilderment. He said, "Your little brother thought I might find you here, Margaret." Yes, Charles would know where she was, but why would Mr. Jenkins have been speaking to Charles Wallace? The principal had never been to the Murray's house, or any parents for that matter. All confrontations were in the safe anonymity of his office. Why would he come through the wet grass and the still dripping garden to look for her instead of sending one of the twins? He said, "I wanted to come find you myself, Margaret, because I feel that I owe you an apology for my sharpness with you last week when you came to see me." He held out a hand, pale in the moonlight, wavering behind the clouds. In utter confusion, she reached out to take his hand, and as she did so, Louise rose up on the wall behind her, hissing and making a strange, warning clacking. Meg turned to see the snake, looking as large and hooded as a cobra, hissing angrily as Mr. Jenkins, raising her large dark coils to strike. Mr. Jenkins screamed in a way that she had never known a man could scream. A high, piercing screech. Then he rose up into the night like a great, flapping bird, flew, screaming across the sky, became a rent, an emptiness, a slash of nothingness. Meg felt that she, too, was screaming. It could not have happened. There was no one, nothing there. She thought she saw Louise slithering back through a dark recess in the stone wall, disappearing. Thank you for the popcorn. See you. It was impossible. Her mind had snapped. It was some kind of hallucination caused by the weather, by her anxiety, by the state of the world. A thick, ugly smell, like spoiled cabbage, like flower stalks left too long in water, rose like a miasma from the place where Mr. Jenkins had been. But he could not have been there. She screamed again, in uncontrollable panic, as a tall shape hurtled toward her. Calvin O'Keefe. She burst into hysterical tears of relief. He vaulted over the wall to her, his strong, thin arms tight around her, holding her. Meg, what is it? She could not control her terrified sobbing. Meg, what's the matter? What happened? He shook her, urgently. Gasping, she tried to tell him. I know it sounds incredible, she finished. She was still trembling violently, her heart racing. When he did not speak, but continued soothingly to pat her back, she said, through a few final hiccuping sobs, Oh, Calvin, I wish I had imagined it. Do you think maybe I did? I don't know, Calvin said flatly. He continued to hold her strongly and comfortingly. Now that Calvin was here, would take over, she was able to manage a slightly hysterical giggle. Mr. Jenkins always said I have too much imagination, but it's never been that kind of imagination. I've never hallucinated or anything, have I? No, he replied firmly. You have not. What's that awful stench? I don't know. It's not nearby. It's not as nearly as bad now as it was just before you came. It makes Lodge smell like roses. Calvin Louise the larger. It's not the first time today Louise had done something peculiar. What? She told him about Louise that afternoon, but she wasn't attacking or anything then. She was still friendly. She's always been a friendly snake. She let her breath out in a long, quavering sigh. Cal, let me see your handkerchief, please. My glasses are filthy and I can't see a thing. And right now, I'd like to be able to see what's going on. My handkerchief is filthy, but Calvin fished in his pockets. It's better than a kilt. Meg spat on her glasses and wiped them. Without their aid, she could see no more of the older boy than a vague blur. So she made bold to say, Oh, Cal, I was hoping you might come over tonight anyhow. I'm surprised you're even willing to speak to me. I came over to apologize for what my brother did to Charles Wallace. Meg adjusted her spectacles with her usual rough shove up the nose, just as a shaft of moonlight broke through the clouds and illuminated Calvin's troubled expression. She returned his handkerchief. It wasn't your fault. Then, I must have had a mental aberration or something about Louise and Mr. Jenkins, mustn't I? I don't know, Meg. You've never had a mental aberration before, have you? Not that I know of. Fumets to Mr. Jenkins, anyhow. She almost shouted. What did you just say? Fumets to Mr. Jenkins. Fumets is my new swear word. I'm tired of all the old ones. Fumets are dragon droppings and... I know fumets are dragon droppings. What I want to know is why you picked on fumets of all things. It seemed quite a reasonable choice to me. Suddenly she was shaking again. Calvin, please, don't. It's too serious. He dropped his bantering tone. Okay, Meg, what's up about fumets? Oh, Cal, I was so sort of shook about Mr. Jenkins' thing, I almost forgot about the dragons. The what? She told him all about Charles Wallace and his dragons, and he's never hallucinated before, either. She told him again about Louise greeting the shadow of something they had not quite seen. But it certainly wasn't Mr. Jenkins. Louise wasn't in the least friendly about Mr. Jenkins. "It's wild," Calvin said. "Absolutely wild." "But we did see fumets, Calvin. Or something. More like feathers, really, but not like real feathers." Charles Wallace took one home. There was a whole pile of them, these sort of feathers, and dragon scales, by the biggest rock in the north pasture. Calvin sprang to his feet. "Let's go, then. Bring your flashlight." It was possible now for her to cross the orchard and go into the pasture with Calvin to take the lead. Uppermost in Meg's mind, superseding fear, was the need to prove that she and Charles Wallace weren't just making something up, that the wild tales she had told Calvin were real. Not Mr. Jenkins turning into a flying emptiness in the sky. She did not want that to be real. But the dragons. For if nothing that had happened touched on reality, then she was going out of her mind. Thank you, Jacob. It's about to happen. Alright, yeah, these are kind of long chapters, aren't they? When they reached the pasture, Calvin took the light from her. "I'll go ahead a bit." But Meg followed close on his heels. She thought she could sense disbelief as he swept the arc of light across the base of the rock. The beam came to rest in a small circle. In the center of the circle shone something gold and glittering. "Phew," Calvin said. Meg giggled with relief and tension. "Don't you mean fumets? Has anybody ever seen a fumet?" Calvin was down on his hands and knees, running his fingers through the little pile of feathers and scales. Okay, this is most peculiar. But what left it? After all, a gang of dragons just doesn't disappear." "A drive of dragons," Meg corrected automatically. "Do you really think it's dragons?" No, we're in chapter 2 right now. Calvin did not answer. He asked, "Did you tell your mother?" Calvin Wallace showed the feathers to the twins during dinner, and Mother saw it too. The twins said it wasn't a bird's feather because the rashes isn't right, and then the conversation got shifted. I think Charles shifted it on purpose. "How is he?" Calvin asked. "How badly did Whippy hurt him?" "He's been hurt worse." Mother put compressions on his eyes, and turning black and blue, but that's about all. She was not ready yet to mention his pallor or shortness of wind. "You'd think we lived in the roughest section of an inner city or something instead of way out in the peaceful country. There isn't a day he doesn't get shoved around by one of the bigger kids. It's not only Whippy, Cal. Why is it that my parents know all about physics and biology and stuff, and nothing about keeping their son from being mobbed?" Calvin pulled himself up onto the smaller of the two stones. "If it's any consolation to you, Meg, I doubt if my parents know the difference between physics and biology. Maybe Charles would be better off in a city school where there's lots of different kinds of kids. White, black, yellow, Spanish, rich, poor. Maybe he wouldn't stand out as being so different if there were other different people too. Here, well, everybody's sort of alike. People are kind of proud of having your parents live here and pally with the president and all, but you Murrays certainly aren't like anybody else. You've managed. Same way the twins have. Playing by the laws of the jungle. You know that. Anyhow, my parents and grandparents were born right here in the village, and so were my great-grandparents. The O'Keefes may be shiftless, but at least they're not newcomers." His voice deepened with an old sadness. "Oh, Cal." He shrugged his dark mood aside. "I think maybe we'd better go talk to your mother." "Not yet." Charles Wallace's voice came from behind them. "She's got enough worries. Let's ride." I think maybe we'd better go talk to your mother. Not yet. Charles Wallace's voice came from behind them. She's got enough worries. Let's wait till the dragons come back. Meg jumped. Charles, why aren't you in bed? Does Mother know you're out? I was in bed. Mother doesn't know I'm out, obviously. Meg was near tears of exhaustion. Nothing is obvious anymore. Then, in her big sister tone of voice, you shouldn't be out this late. What happened? What do you mean? Meg, I came out because something frightened you. He sighed. A strangely tired and ancient sigh from so small a boy. I was almost asleep and I felt you screaming. I don't want to tell you about it. I don't want it to have happened. Where's Fortinbras? I left him at home and told him not to let on that I wasn't sound asleep in bed. I didn't want him tangling with dragons. Meg, what happened? You've got to tell me. Meg said, Okay, Charles. I don't doubt your dragons anymore. No dragons could be more incredible than Mr. Jenkins coming to look for me in the garden and then turning into a great shrieking bird of nothingness. She spoke quickly because what she was saying sounded so absurd. Charles Wallace did not laugh. He opened his mouth to speak, then swung around. Who's here? Nobody, Calvin said. Meg and me. You. But he jumped down from the rock. There's nobody else near. There's somebody else near. Meg moved closer to Calvin. Her heart, it seemed, stopped beating. Hush, Charles Wallace said, though they had not spoken. He listened with lifted head, like Fortinbras catching a scent. To the right of the pasture was a woods, a small forest of oak, maple, beech, stripped of all but a few brittle leaves, backed by the dark winter richness of assorted spruce and pine. The ground, which the moonlight did not reach, was covered with fallen, damp leaves and pine needles, which would silence footsteps. Then they heard the sharp crack of a breaking twig. Meg and Calvin, straining to peer through the trees, saw nothing. Then Charles Wallace cried, My dragons! They turned around, and they saw, there by the great rock, wings. It seemed like hundreds of wings, spreading, folding, stretching, and eyes. How many eyes can a drive of dragons have? And small jets of flame. Suddenly a voice called to them from the direction of the woods. Do not be afraid. Dear, cheers, Dodge. Thank you. That's the end of chapter 2. I'll be sure to upload this video to my YouTube channel tomorrow, so you guys can go through any of the previous chapters you haven't caught up on. And life goes on. Aw, thank you. I hope everything is going well or will go well soon. Sorry if you're going through something hard. Yep, we're in the second book of the Wrinkle in Time trilogy. This book is called A Wind in the Door, and we're in chapter 2. It's this one. And these are the 3 books that are included in this book. Oh, chapter 4 is going to make you tear up. Yeah, I tried. I mean, they are pretty long chapters, so I usually only read one chapter in the evening. And I always post them on my YouTube channel as well. So thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for the likes and the follows and the gifts. Thank you, Lyndon, as always. Thank you for your help. You're a great mod. Alright, so I'm going to get to bed. You guys have a wonderful morning. Homeworld's too sweet. I can't handle this. Morty. Hello, Morty. I need Q-stars, please. Oh my goodness. Well, I don't want to wake anybody up in case anybody's on this live and fell asleep. But if you need some snort laughs, there's plenty of them in my videos that I posted. I just posted a new one, a new Amazon review video, so it got me going pretty good. Yes, be kind. Thank you. Alright, guys. Thank you again. We'll have a wonderful evening or morning, depending on where you're at in the world. And I love you all. Have a good night.